Alright, the time has come. It is finally time to start the regear on the 8.8. So I just finished the Ultimate 8.8 the other day. So I've still got all the shafts pulled out. The diff cover is off. The locker is out. You know, everything's ready to go to pull the carrier. Drive shaft is disconnected. So the pinion's ready to come out, all that sort of stuff. So I got my rebuild kit ready. Here's my gears. These are Yukon 456s. I got this organized. I got the locker under here. And I'm ready to put the carrier up here and start moving everything over. Alright, so before I drop this, I'm going to put a punch mark on these bearing caps. Because these are not like the Dana axles that have the letters punched on them. There, so I got one punch mark at the top of this one, two punch marks at the top of this one, so I'll know which side they go on and which side goes up. Wow, that is so loose already. Holy moly, that is loose. Okay. Oh, that is so loose. There's like zero preload on this thing. Oh, okay. Oh, that's it. Alright, so the 8.8 actually uses its shims on the outside of the bearings. So it's a lot different than the Dana 30. Holy moly. Okay, that was semi-ridiculous. 355 compared to 456. Oh shit. That's not what you want. I got my bearing splitter kind of set up on it here, and I'm using a socket to push off of the center. So let's give this a shot. I'm gonna put on my face mask for this one. It's barely got it grabbed under there, but it does have it. Cha-ching! Got it. Alright, so that worked good. Another option to pull those bearings off. This one's from OTC. I'm going to go ahead and cut this apart now. Alright, so I have these. These are Pinion setup bearings from East Coast Gear Supply. Before I start opening this master rebuild kit, I'm going to label these so that I don't get them confused. Alright, there we go. So these are the setup bearings for the Pinion. And these are my carrier bearings that I'm going to use as to press on the new ones. Now, if you are running the stock axles in the 8.8 that still have the C-clips, you can't put your locker in or your spider gears or whatever else in until you put in the axles and put in the C-clips, so the carrier has to be in. For me, since I have the Ultimate 8.8 and I don't have C-clips anymore, I have the retainer plates on the outside, I don't have to do that. So I can fully assemble my carrier with the locker, the ring gear, and everything, have it ready to go, and I'm not going to have to grind down one of the teeth on the ring gear to be able to get my cross pin back in. Put this guy back with some red Loctite. Oop, that was a lot. Alright, let's see if I can get the ring gear over the carrier here. Figured it would take some heat. The last one took some heat to get off. Okay, so that tried my patience a little bit, but it's on there now, and I don't see a gap. This would have been a lot easier to do if I'd put the ring gear in the oven, but I didn't think to do that. I forgot. So what I did here was bolt one of my axle shafts to one of my wheels, and then I put the carrier on the shaft. I'm going to tighten one up, skip two, tighten it. Skip two, tighten it. Alright, so it's the next day. This is cooled off now, so I'm going to start putting new bearings and stuff on. Then I'll start working on the Pinion. Check this out though. My friend Steven, who drives the TJ on 40s, his girlfriend took this picture of us at Moab this past year. So that's my wife and I in the Jeep on Fins and Things. But she printed it out and framed it and sent it to me. So that was super cool. Thank you, Stacy. Okay, so I got all the old stuff disassembled. Here is the original shim that was under the pinion bearing. So I'm going to reuse that and start there on my new one. I'm going to cut this bearing apart now and use this inner piece. Okay, so I just spent some time making this. This is my setup nut that I'm going to use for the new pinion. I ended up cutting the whole top of the old nut off right here actually with my bandsaw, and then going around in there with a burr bit just because it had so much clamping force, and it was a little deformed from hammering the pinion out, but I got it on now. This is good to go, and I'm able to run it on, you know, without it trying to grab or cut into the threads or anything of the new pinion. See, there's quite a bit of difference between the 355 and the 456. So I'm going to put the original shim on, and then the setup bearing. There we go. It's pretty tight, but it's on there. So I'll get the new races hammered in. Alright, I got it really cleaned up in there. I'm going to go ahead and install my races. Okay, I'm ready to start setting these up. I'm going to try to reuse the original shims that were in here. Since it's the same carrier, maybe we'll get lucky. I doubt it. But I have a whole nother stack right there of carrier shims and a whole other stack of pinion shims. But I'm going to try the original pinion shim first. Hopefully got some preload. Okay, second attempt here, and I'm just under 10 thousandths on the backlash, which is just under, or it's right in spec. So I'm going to check pattern now, and I'm sure the pinion will be too deep or too shallow or something, and I'll have to start all over, but at least we're getting somewhere. It's hard to tell. This gear oil, or this Paint is so thick still. It's kind of hard to see, but it's too shallow. So I'm going to take all this out and put the pinion a little deeper. All right, I think we got it, boys. I took pattern measurements or readings in a couple spots, and they both look really good. It looks like full tooth contact, not too deep, not too shallow on the coast and the drive side. So I'm good with that. I'm gonna run it. I gotta pull this back apart one more time, press on the real pinion bearings, and then put it together for good. Okay, I got my pinion with the crush sleeve on, tail bearing. It's oiled up. The oil slinger. I got the new seal here. I've got grease packed in the inside and around the rubber, and I've got a little bit of RTV around the outside. Just to help it seal a little bit better. Okay, slight change of plans. I could not get this crush sleeve to start crushing. I just have such a limited amount of space under the Jeep since I'm working on the floor that I just could not get the leverage that I needed to start really crushing this. I had my full jack handle on a 1/2-inch ratchet trying to lift it. Then I was hitting the leaf spring, that was getting in the way. I was bending. I was twisting my little flange adapter holder thing. So I had to weld a bar to it and wedge that against the leaf spring so that I could get enough tension on it to actually spin the nut without spinning the flange adapter, and it was just not happening. There's a couple things you can do. You can put this in a press and try to crush it a little so that it's easier to crush on the Jeep and that sort of stuff. But then you run the risk of this being crushed too much and whatever. So I'm gonna upgrade. I bought this. This is a crush sleeve eliminator from Yukon. This is a more expensive option. I think Richmond makes another option that's a little less expensive. So it's a 2-piece spacer, and you put shims between the 2-piece, so you can change, how far or how close the pinion, sits inside the bearings. I'm still messing around with this thing, but make sure if you use this, you put it on the correct way. If you put the big side down, it won't sit flush on this bottom lip. See, with the big side down, it doesn't sit on this lip right here all the way. So make sure the small piece is down, and the small piece has an extra bevel, or like an extra deep bevel, however you want to say it, on one side, and that's the side that should be facing down on the pinion. Alright, so I was almost done getting this set up, and then my baby boy came into the world. So it's been about a week since I started working on this pinion. I'm going to finish it up today. I got home, I tried one more combination of shims and got it perfect. It's right at 18, 19 inch-pounds. of preload, which is great. So I'll take this setup nut back off and put the real one on. This thing was very finicky. It was at the point where 40 thousandths had, you know, way too much preload, and 41 thousandths had no preload. So I had to get the shims just right and get 40.5 thousandths. But I got it. Alright, got my new nut with some red Loctite. I'm going to send it home. There is no torque spec listed for this nut in the Yukon manual. And since it's preloaded with shims and no crush sleeve, I guess it's not really that important anyway, so I'm just going to send it home with my big impact. Seven thousandths. Okay, final pattern. Alright, so the 8.8 is done. It is re-geared. I'm waiting on a couple of extra parts. I figured since I've touched every other part of this axle, I might as well replace the backing plates that are on it, since they were so beat up and crusty just from being in the junkyard. And it needed new e-brake shoes anyway. So I ordered a pair of loaded, brand new backing plates from East Coast Gear Supply that already have the new brake shoes and everything in them. So that was nowhere near as fun or as easy as the Dana 30. The shims being on the outside of the bearings made it pretty challenging. You know, I destroyed a bunch of shims trying to get those that carrier in and out. So that was a good learning experience, but I definitely prefer the shims being under the carrier bearings. But I got it done. A couple of snags. So I'll leave links to all the specialty tools that I used to do this. It's not an extensive list, but it is, you know, several things that you can't do without. I would definitely recommend this type of, you know, micrometer over a standard caliper. This is just so much more accurate. You can get a digital one of these too, but this was way more precise than this. And like I said, at one point it came down to half of a thousandth, so 5/10 thousandths at one point for those pinion shims. So I'm going to put all my old setup bearings and extra parts and setup nut and extra shims and everything in this in case I ever do another one. I definitely want to build a pair of, or I want to build tons at some point in the future. Maybe not for this Jeep, but at some point I definitely want to do tons. And I will definitely be rebuilding those and re-gearing those out on a bench or on the floor or something, not laying under the Jeep working above my head, because that carrier was really heavy and awkward. Alright, next video, we'll get it fully assembled and go for a test drive. Finally.